One of the lessons we learn from modern metaphysics in this century is that in contrast to the East, Western thought has become substantialistic and egoistic. Beings are considered substances and their relations are accidents, and reality belongs to substances. This Western bias can be traced to the influence of Aristotle, who based his philosophy on the subject-object structure of the Greek language. Aristotelian substantialism did much to shape science and religion in the West. In the modern world, Descartes institutionalized substantialism and through his methodic doubt developed the notion of the modern subject, ensuring the egoistic tendency of Western philosophy, theology, and physics. We have seen how modern physics moved toward a relational paradigm. Now we must turn to the philosophical situation in the 20th century, and especially to the metaphysical thesis of universal internality or relatedness, to determine the nature of the emerging relational paradigm in physics and metaphysics. To do this, we turn to the modern debate among philosophers about the nature of relation. It was in the closing years of the 19th century that British philosopher F.H. Bradley first proposed that all relations are internal to the terms, we would say. This case was made in the appendix to the second edition of his magnum opus, Appearance and Reality, published in 1893, where he argued, among other things, that, quote, nothing in the whole or in the end can be external, and everything in the universe is an abstraction from the whole, end quote. Bradley's compatriot, A.C. Ewing, stated the position as follows: the world known to us constitutes a system in which every particular is linked to the rest of the system by a relation of logical entailment. It implies, he says, that the nature of any one thing taken by itself is incomplete and incoherent without the whole system on which it depends. Things by their very essence belong together. While many philosophers oppose this doctrine of universal relatedness, as did Charles Hartshorne, who properly labeled it, it has claimed the allegiance of Brand Blanchard of Yale, who argued in connection with the doctrine that scientific method is reductionist because it intentionally dissociates things that belong together. He continues, every one of the experimental canons does its work by elimination, that is, by showing that all but certain factors are unconnected with a given result, either because they are present when it is absent or absent when it is present, or independently variable. It was Blanchard who gives us this definition of internal relatedness. A relation is internal to a term when in its absence the term would be different. It is external when its addition or withdrawal would make no difference to a term. Bradley had his opponents, namely Bertrand Russell, who in his early years argued that all relations are external. Even A plus B, the A and B are something in themselves. While William James and G.E. Moore made the more cautious case that some relations are internal and some external. Both men were opponents of Bradley's neo-Hegelian monism and sought to dethrone it by defending the thesis that at least some relations are external. The American philosopher Charles Hartshorne, whom we mentioned, devoted his whole career to articulating and defending the doctrine that some relations are internal, some external. Yet it is the case that Hartshorne could not break completely free of monism, as we see in the following quotation of his. The interaction between two molecules is slightly peculiar to those molecules, yet it is one thing even though they are two, or rather it is one thing with various aspects. In this oneness is embraced the unity of the world. All relations, internal and external, involve a substantial unity embracing the relata.